When you set up worksheets in Excel, you will spend a fair amount of time entering series and sequences of numbers or dates. And in this movie, I will show you a number of ways to make that a lot less painful. I'll start by showing you how to use the fill handle. So let's say that I want to enter in a series of numbers, say from 1 to 10. So in cell A3, I'll type the number 1 and enter, and then I'll click cell A3 again, and at the bottom right corner you can see that there is a green square. That is the fill handle. And when I move the mouse pointer over it, when I can grab it, the mouse pointer changes to a black cross. So go ahead and drag down, and you can see that the number 1 is being repeated. So I'm not getting a sequence, I'm just getting the number 1 a bunch of times. So I'll go down there, and I have the number 1. So from here, I'll press Control-Z to undo what I just did, and I will hold down the Control key, which changes the behavior of the fill handle. So hold down Control and move the mouse pointer over the fill handle, and you can see that I now have the black cross as before, and then it has a small black cross to the top right. It almost looks like an exponent. That indicates you're getting the secondary behavior. So now if I drag down, it will extend the series, and you can see in the little tooltip that I get the numbers 1 through 10. And I promised I would talk about the autofill options button, so I'll go ahead and click that here. And you see that you can copy the cells, you can fill formatting only, which is actually very useful if you have a bunch of cells that have perhaps a conditional format applied, and you want to copy that. That's very useful. And then you have fill without formatting. And that's also very useful because if you've ever copied cells that have borders applied to them, you know the borders get copied as well. In this case, you'll just be copying either the formulas or the numbers or the contents. So fill without formatting is a very good option to keep in your pocket. Another thing you can do is to generate a progression. So for example, if in cell B3 I type 1 and then in B4 I type 3, then I have a step of 2 between those two values. And if I grab, or rather select, B3 and B4, I get the fill handle at the bottom right corner, and if I drag down, then you can see I get the odd numbers. So Excel remembered the step, it identified the pattern of +2, and continued it on down. You can also do that for a time series of data. So in C3, I'll type 1 just to start, and then 4.2 in C4. Next one will be 3.8, 5.9, 2.7, why not? And then 6.3, and enter. So I have a set of data. They could be values, for example, sales over time. Now if I select those values, C3 to C8, and drag the fill handle down, then you can see that I get a progression of data based on the previous rules. Now, one unfortunate thing is that the values never go down, they only go up. But if you want to have data that goes up based on the pattern you established before, then this is one way that you can do that. One final thing about the fill handle is that you can double-click it to extend a formula or data entry all the way down to match the cells to the left of it. So if I click in cell D3 and I type equal rand between 1 and 10, so this formula will just generate a random whole number from 1 to 10, and enter, I get 8, and I will click cell D3, which contains my formula, and then I will double-click the fill handle, and you can see that the formula gets copied down. And of course, the values all updated because rand between is what's called a volatile formula. It will recalculate every time the worksheet recalculates. So I'll press Control-C to copy the values that are currently selected. And then if you're not familiar with just pasting the values by keyboard shortcut, here's how you do it in the new version of Excel. You can do Control-Shift-V. And that gives you, instead of the formulas, it gives you the values. So again, if you have a relatively new version of Excel, that is a terrific tool to keep in your pocket. And again, that is Control-Shift-V. instead of just Control V. You can also work with dates. So let's say in F3, to give myself a little bit of space, I will type 1/20/24. So in the US, that would be January 20th of 2024, and enter. Then if I click that cell, F3, and then use the fill handle to drag down, you can see that for dates, the default behavior is to increase by 1 day. So go ahead and drag down. And the autofill options button gives you different options when you work with dates. So I'll click that action button, and you can see that I can fill days. I can fill only weekdays, so that would ignore Saturdays and Sundays. I can go by months, and I can go by years. So let's just say that I will do weekdays only. So it looks like the 27th and 28th were Saturday and Sunday, and then it kept the 20th because that's the value that I gave it to start with, but it skipped the 21st, which apparently is a Sunday. Finally, you can use a relatively new function to generate sequences of values, and that is the sequence function. So in H3, I'll type equal, and then sequence. You can enter in the number of rows, and then optionally, columns, a start value, and a step value. So for here, for the rows, I'll just start simple, and I'll just type 10, enter, and I get the values 1 through 10. So it assumes a start value of 1 and a step value of 1. Then I'll click I3, and I'll start sequence again. So I'll do 10 rows, and this time I'll do 2 columns, and enter. And you can see it does rows first and then columns. So I have 1 and 2, 3 and 4, and 5 and 6. Now I'll click in K3, and I'll do a start value. This time, let's say that I start at 11. So equal, sequence. Rows will be 10. 10, not 1 hyphen, comma. I'll just do 1 column, although I could leave that blank, so it'll do just 1. And then the start value will be 11, and I won't change the step. So right parentheses and enter, and it starts at 11 and goes down. Now let's see, I want to do step 5. So in L3, I'll type equal, sequence. 10 rows again. I'll do 1 column because I'm getting near the edge of my screen, and the start will be 0, and then the step value will be 5. So I should get values from 0 to, I think, 45. So right parentheses and then enter. And yep, I go from 0 all the way up to 45. So starting at 0, 10 values, each one incremented by 5, ending on 45. So hopefully what I've shown you here will make it easier when you need to enter series and sequences of numbers and dates when you're setting up your own workbooks.